Uluru and Kata Tjuṭa National Park is a unique place that few people outside of Australia have heard of, and not every tourist or even Australian has actually visited. Yet this place is considered the very heart of the country, a vast red sandy core that makes up nearly a fifth of Australian landmass and holds deep sacred significance for the indigenous Anangu people. This extraordinary red desert covers you with fine dust within minutes of setting foot on its soil. You can appreciate the vastness of this place from miles away, but it's not until you're actually standing here that you realize something amazing. Despite the intense heat and barely any water inside, the place is full of life, from tiny, fearless lizards and strange, otherworldly plants to sights more familiar to travelers like us. The people who call this place home, their stories, their culture and legends are deeply intertwined with this land, or more precisely with this massive surreal formation rising from an almost endless plain called Uluru, also known as Ayers Rock, this enormous sandstone monolith that drew us here. And we came to see it, feel it, and to try to understand the power of this place, because everyone who's been here says the same thing, that the moment you arrive, something about it feels almost magical. Like any trip, it started with booking flights and accommodation. So Booking.yeah, we haven't been paid for this ad, so let's skip this and get straight to what makes this place truly special. As I already mentioned, one of the first surprises when you arrive is the greenery. Although plus 25-30 degrees in the middle of winter clearly reminds you where you are. Since the town you fly into feels like a resort, which is less than 50 years old and built specifically to host visitors to Uluru, there is not much to see there. So we headed straight out to explore the place that brought us all this way. Uluru. Right behind me is Uluru, and this is the viewing platform. Most people come here early in the morning to catch the sunrise, so during the day it's almost empty. Well, except for the flies. There are a lot of them here, but still not as many as they could be, because in peak summer, when it's really hot, you wouldn't be able to stand here without a fly net over your face. So yeah, in that sense, we got lucky. But even now, it's not that hot, it's only 25-26 degrees, but in this jacket, it honestly feels like I'm in a sauna. By the way, when people talk about the magic of this place, they always mention the sunrise or sunset. And that's exactly why we came here, to scout the best spot to watch the sun come up. So you will definitely see this landscape again later in this video. To be honest, it's really hot. You can feel that you are in the desert, but oddly, if you look around, it doesn't look like a classic desert. There is quite a bit of greenery, but still the red dust, it gives everything away. And the flies, they're constantly buzzing around. It's a bit of a mixed experience, but somehow it's still kind of amazing. By the way, there is actually a reason why the soil and rock here are so red. It's blushing with embarrassment that you haven't subscribed to this channel or liked this video yet. After all, these simple actions help new videos to come out. Oh yeah, it's also a little flushed from the lack of comments under this video. That aside, our first impressions of this place were a bit unusual. The almost complete absence of people during the day, the quite large number of flies, for which we are the only source of water, and the scorching sun makes you wonder whether this trip was such a great idea after all. But having already spent a little time here, something shifts, and there is something about it. The longer we stayed, the more our thoughts changed from asking ourselves, where is everyone? And are we supposed to be somewhere else? To eventually realizing that the silence started to feel spacious and quite peaceful. Because besides us, there was no one here, which made the experience even more special, knowing that over 1,000 of tourists fly here every day just to see this rock. Well, our classic story, we went on a 5-minute hike.
In the desert.
In the desert. But we're not far away. Yep, we're not far away, but stayed for 2 hours. We had very little water.
300 mils of water.
I think even less. And we're really thirsty. Are you thirsty?
Very thirsty.
Really want some water.
But what of you?
Yep, that's true. After exploring the viewpoint for a few hours, we made our way towards the base of Uluru, where you can do a circle walk, of course if you have about 4 hours to spare. And there, by the way, we finally saw some of those missing tourists we have been wondering about earlier. We didn't plan to walk the entire trail, mostly because of the heat. Instead, we decided to stop at several different points along the base to see Uluru from all sides, and hopefully catch a glimpse of the indigenous rock paintings that are scattered around the site. Well, we have finally got to Uluru, and now we are planning to do a hike at the base of this rock. It is massive. You probably can't tell from this distance, but once we get closer, you'll see. I think it's high as a 100 floors building, I think. So it's a giant rock standing alone in the middle of the plain, and there is nothing around. It's just surreal. I don't know if you can see these dark stripes over there. Those are actually little waterfalls. When it rains, water flows down through those channels. Not today though. I don't know if you can see it, but there is a cloud of flies around us, because we are the only water sources out here, sweaty human-shaped water sources. Despite Uluru being just under 350 meters high, it feels enormous. Because it stands out on a completely flat plain with nothing else around, its scale really catches you off guard, especially when you first see the mountain from a distance. And speaking of mountains, technically Uluru is not a mountain, but rather a monolith, a single massive rock. In fact, it's the largest of its kind in the world. From a geological perspective, it's a bit like an iceberg, as most of it lies underground, extending roughly 2.5 kilometers deep. It formed around 500 million years ago from layers of sandstone deposits. Given the age of this rock, Uluru was here before the dinosaurs and has outlived them by a long shot. According to the legends of the Anangu people, Uluru was created by ancestral being during the dream time, a sacred era of creation in Aboriginal culture. The Anangu believe those ancestral spirits still dwell in Uluru and the surrounding land. That's why this place is so sacred and why filming is not allowed in certain areas, especially where the ancient rock art has been preserved. But there are still places where you can take photos, and we will definitely visit those. It's hard to capture in words or even on camera, but the closer you get to Uluru, the more you feel something different. There is a quiet, almost intangible presence of this massive red rock, a kind of subtle energy that surrounds you as you walk beside it. Now about those black stripes I mentioned earlier. At certain times of year, something truly amazing happens here. Uluru turns into a sort of rain accumulator. When it rains, water cascades down the rock surface, pooling at its base and forming those dark lines. Witnessing that in the middle of a dry, red desert, you could start believing in the divinity of this phenomenon. I'm already cooked, but Leah still has some energy. Yep, see here. Filming with the second camera like a champ. It is hot, really hot. Now about the rock paintings. This area was once a kind of school for generations of Anangu. Elders taught the youngest members of the community how to survive, how to hunt and live with the land. The shelters at the base of Uluru offered protection from the sun, and the rock face itself was used like a board, a place where important knowledge was recorded. Now it's one of the attractions, which of course fenced off from over-curious tourists. But perhaps the most beautiful views here are at sunset and sunrise. And that's exactly what we are about to do, starting with sunset. There are several viewing points in the park, but let's start with the easiest one, a dedicated lookout point. A lot of people come here, so finding parking was a bit of a challenge, especially since we arrived just 20 minutes before sunset. So what's the magic of the sunset? Well, because Uluru is already a rich red color, the light of the setting sun amplifies it, turning it in this surreal shade of orange-pink that's hard to look away from. That's exactly what draws crowds of tourists here every evening, including us. And we decided to celebrate finally getting here, as it was our third attempt to get here. In the previous few years, our trips were cancelled due to COVID or other reasons, one of which was a flight delay from our trip to New Zealand, which by the way is already on this channel. So yes, we decided to celebrate, and we went all in right away, though it was non-alcoholic champagne, because it's quite difficult to find alcohol to take away here. But that's a different story for another video. This is what filming at sunset at Uluru really looks like. And yes, lots of people here. Another way to experience the sunset is by visiting the Field of Lights, a permanent installation by British artist Bruce Munro. He once came here and was so moved by the energy of Uluru that he created this glowing desert garden. As Munro described it, like the dormant seeds in a dry desert would burst into bloom at dusk with gentle rhythms of light under a blazing blanket of stars. It does sound like something out of a dream, an endless field of lights gradually waking up in the darkness. And before that, you can spend a pleasant time with drinks and snacks at sunset, with a gorgeous view of Uluru. And by the way, you can get a drink here. And once the sun goes down, you walk from the viewing hill down into the field itself. And under the shimmering lights and the sound of desert crickets, you are fully immersed in a completely different atmosphere, an almost otherworldly vibe that adds to the feeling that this place is really magical. It's another one of those experiences that's hard to capture on camera, but there is no doubt there is something special about this place. So, about the best time to take in the beauty of this national park. After just a few hours of sleep, we made our way back to the same lookout point to catch the famous red sunrise over Uluru. If you're not a morning person, be warned, it's a bit of a sacrifice. And this was exactly our case. But honestly, I think such a one-time suffering is definitely worth it. Well, good morning. It wasn't easy, but we made it. And yep, that early wake-up call sacrifice is written all over my face. Still, I would say the sunrise is probably the most stunning view of Uluru we saw during our entire trip. But as you can see, we are not the only ones who think so. So this place is very popular, even at such early time. But if you're willing to make just a little extra effort and walk down from the main lookout and away from the parking area, you will find fewer people and a much quieter experience. And this is exactly the place that we checked out the day before at the beginning of this video. By the way, I would very strongly recommend taking something warmer with you, because morning in the desert is a very cold experience. Though it only lasts until sun rises, so give it 30-40 minutes and it warms up quickly. This is what sunrise looks like literally half an hour after the sun rose. A very crowded place suddenly turns completely empty. And there is no one left here except for us. We decided to hang around a bit longer and film Uluru from every single angle, and yes, in every possible way. What really surprised us was how quickly that huge crowd just disappeared. And we still haven't found an answer to the question, where did they all go, as we didn't see that many people anywhere during the day. Any theories? Drop them in the comments. Anyway, we had the whole place to ourselves again, which we were more than happy about. Maybe that's part of the magic of Uluru. But this region has more than just Uluru. There is another massive rock formation nearby, and actually a group of them, called Kata-Tjuta. It's about 40 kilometers west of Uluru, and that's exactly where we're heading next. Kata-Tjuta is similar to Uluru in shape, but it's made of different materials and forms a cluster of large rocks, which can be seen from a fantastic panoramic viewing point on the way there. But just like Uluru, it's hard to capture the full scale of it on camera. Interestingly, the name Kata-Tjuta comes from the local Anangu people and means many heads, which makes sense when you look at the shape of the rock. But when European settlers arrived, they took a slightly different approach and named the tallest peak Mount Olga, after the daughter of Tsar Nicholas I of Russia. But getting back to the traditional name, there are 36 visible domes that makes up Kata-Tjuta, though you can only see a handful from this particular angle. Luckily, we will get a better view later. For now, our plan is get closer and see what's the difference here from Uluru, and whether it's worth making the trip if you already seen the big attraction that most tourists come for. By the way, it's interesting that despite Kata-Tjuta being larger than Uluru and with a peak nearly 200 meters taller, it's still much less popular with tourists, and it's rarely mentioned as the first place to visit. As you can probably tell from all the gear I'm carrying, I was ready for any filming situation, though I wasn't quite prepared for my microphone to stop working. But at least the video didn't fail us. So the first thing you notice here is the extraordinary atmosphere, which is slightly different from Uluru. It's even more remote and peaceful. And something else that really stands out here is greenery, flowers and plants growing all over. Yes, the surrounding landscape is mostly red rock and desert, but still you can feel that life has always existed here. It's easier to understand how people lived here for thousands of years. Though the word survived might be the better word considering the climate. Also, the flies. They were definitely worse here. At some point, lots of them covered us from all the sides in search of any water, or they just got tired of flying in the heat and decided to hitch a ride on me. Honestly, I can't even imagine what this place is like in the middle of summer. This time, instead of walking around the domes, we decided to head between them, into a small valley that starts a loop walk through these majestic rocks. And the deeper we went, the more alive the landscape became. Views here became more and more epic, unlike any place we had been before. At some point, the scenery felt almost magical, like something from the tales of Aladdin, an oasis that Genie brought to reality. For some reason, I remember this exact image that I saw in some movie when I was a kid. It was a bit surreal to feel the same childhood awe again, standing in this real-life landscape. Unfortunately, we were running out of time before sunset, so we quickly turned back to the parking spot as we had a very different plan for this evening, something totally new for us. Our first ever helicopter flight just in time for sunset over Uluru and Kata Tjuṭa.
Come and grab a little stand there in front. We'll get a nice little shot here.
At this moment, it suddenly turned out that the pilot is also a photographer, and he offered to take pictures of us from every possible angle, which was both unexpected and awesome. After which actually the real magic began. Since you're flying at a fairly high speed and cutting across the land without obstacles, the same trip that took us nearly 2 hours early by car only took us about 20 minutes, and we got to enjoy an unforgettable sunset over both of these majestic places. It was breathtaking, a kind of experience that leaves you speechless in the moment and glowing long after. Definitely one of the crown jewels in our travel memory collection. was our last evening here, so we decided to treat ourselves to dinner at one of the local restaurants before heading back to our tent where we had been staying in the entire trip. Yep, it wasn't a hotel, just a cozy tent in the desert, so Uluru is also a place of contrasts. Option 1. We go to sleep, wake up and catch the flight and go home. Option 2. And option 4. Wake up at 4:30 a.m. or don't go to bed at all. 4:30 a.m. Pack up the tents by 5:30 and go. We can do another sunrise or visit Kata-Tjuta again. Which one sounds better to you? So, which one do you think we picked? Well, I will say this. It was definitely worth it, as this place is absolutely unique and unforgettable. And if you ever get the chance to come here, go for it. Because when you leave this place, all you will be thinking is I need to come back here someday just to feel that magic again.